You know, when you buy a brand new computer, you just inherently trust the operating system. Like, you don't even think about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You just turn it on and expect it to work.
Right. You click a folder icon on your desktop, and a window opens. You drag a file to the little trash can, you hit delete, and, well, the file's gone.
Right, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. It's just the baseline reality of the machine.
Hmm.
You accept that user interface as the absolute truth of what is happening inside that hardware.
Yeah, I mean, you don't question the underlying binary code.
Right.
And you certainly don't question the literal architecture of the motherboard.
No, never.
You interact with the interface because it's functional, it's predictable, and honestly, it's kind of comforting. It gives you a sense of control over the whole system.
Right. But, okay, imagine if, like, one random Tuesday, you found out that the entire operating system was a malicious simulation.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like, the folders you've been clicking aren't actually real. The trash can is a complete lie.
Yeah.
Your deleted files are actually being sent to some remote server. And the actual physical computer you are sitting in front of is literally being run by an external hacker.
That's terrifying.
And the most insidious part, this hacker has somehow convinced you that you are the one typing the commands.
Right, because in that scenario, you're no longer the user sitting at the desk. You are the compromised hardware.
Exactly.
You're living inside this completely manufactured, closed-loop environment where, every single input and output has been meticulously designed to keep you totally blind to the actual architecture of the prison you're sitting in.
And that operating system analogy, that is the exact paradigm shift we are unpacking today. So welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a heavy one.
It really is. Today, we are laying out a massive, highly intricate worldview that fundamentally challenges almost everything we are taught to assume is true about our daily reality.
Yeah, we have two very dense, deeply radical sources on the table today.
Right. The first is an MP4 video presentation titled The Hive Mind and the Divine Leash.
And the second is just a staggering, multi-layered manifesto document. It's specifically Edition XLV, or 45, titled Satan is One Complete Manifesto V45.MD.
And that one is authored by a writer who identifies as Jim Wize, a disciple of truth.
Right, and it is a truly remarkable collection of texts just in terms of its sheer scope. Like, the mission of our deep dive today is to deconstruct and really understand this incredibly complex alternative worldview.
Because we're looking at a framework that fuses, like, ancient theology, flat earth geocentric cosmology, and even concepts of esoteric biological warfare into this single, unified matrix of reality.
Exactly. Jim Wise's material attempts to deconstruct standard narratives across, linguistics, modern psychiatric medicine, global geography, and even the pop culture programming that we consume every single day.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But hey, before we jump into the deep end here, we need to establish some very firm ground rules for you, the listener.
Yes, very important.
Because if you are tuning in while commuting, or, making breakfast, you need to know that these sources present a radical, deeply alternative view of history, science, and theology.
Highly contentious claims.
Extremely. Regarding modern medicine, the literal shape of the earth, ethnic geography, you name it. So we need to make it abundantly clear right now that we, as your hosts, are acting strictly as impartial guides through this material.
We are not endorsing, validating, or taking sides on any of the viewpoints presented in these documents.
Not at all. That's a crucial distinction. Our goal today is not to convince you of these claims.
And we aren't here to debunk them or mock them either.
Right. Our objective is purely analytical. We want to unpack the internal logic, the structural architecture, and the profound why behind the arguments Jim Wize makes.
We're basically just here to map out the territory of this text so you can understand its internal consistency, regardless of whether you agree with a single word of it.
Exactly. So if we're looking at this global deception, this hacked operating system, where does the text say the hack actually began?
Well, you'd think it would start with changing the physical maps or rewriting the science textbooks, right?
Yeah, that would be the logical starting point.
But according to the author, the ultimate deception started at the foundational level of human cognition. It started with the manipulation of language itself.
Specifically, the manipulation of names and titles.
Right. The text begins with this fascinating forensic breakdown of the ancient Hebrew language.
Okay, let's get into that.
So the author argues that humanity has been subjected to a massive, what he calls a semantic inversion.
Semantic inversion.
Yeah. Let's look at the Hebrew word zhan. In the original ancient text, this is not a personal proper name.
Wait, really? It's not a name.
No, it is a generic common noun. Depending on the context, it simply means adversary, accuser, or one who obstructs.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a job description,
Exactly.
like being a bouncer or a toll booth operator. It's what you do, not who you are.
That's a great way to put it. It is a transient role. It's a function of opposition. The text points out that in the earlier historical books of the Old Testament, this generic term was frequently applied to human adversaries.
Like human beings.
Yeah. For example, the Philistines feared that King David might become a Satan to them in battle.
Huh.
And even more surprisingly, in the book of Numbers, when a righteous, loyal angel of the Lord is sent to physically block the path of the rebellious prophet Balaam.
Wait, a loyal angel?
Yes. That holy angel is referred to in the Hebrew text as a Satan, an obstructor.
I have to stop you there because that completely flips the script on how modern culture uses that word.
It really does.
You're saying the word itself isn't inherently evil in the original language. It just means the one standing in the way.
According to the linguistic analysis in the text, yeah, that is correct. It is a functional title.
That's wild. So how did it become this ultimate name of evil?
The author explains that the shift happened during translation. When the ancient Hebrew texts were translated into Greek, which was this massive historical undertaking known as a Septuagint around the 3rd century BCE, the translators had to figure out what to do with this word.
Right, because translation is never a one-to-one perfect match.
Exactly. They rendered ha-Satan, which means the Satan or the obstructor, as diabolos, which means slanderer, or epibulos, meaning plotter.
Okay, but linguistics is incredibly messy, right? We know the ancient Greeks struggled to translate Hebrew idioms all the time.
Oh, constantly.
So why does the author immediately jump to this being a global psychological operation instead of just, I don't know, standard historical incompetence or language drift over thousands of years? Like capitalizing a word doesn't magically summon a demon.
No, it doesn't summon a demon, but it fundamentally alters human psychology, and that is Wise's main point here.
Okay, check that for me.
The core argument of the manifesto in this section is the contrast between the righteous angels and the fallen host. The text emphasizes that righteous angels who faithfully serve the Creator are honored with specific personal names that glorify the divine.
Right, like Michael, which translates to, who is like God?
Yes, or Gabriel, meaning God is my strength. Or Raphael.
They get these beautiful identifying signatures.
But the unrepentant rebel host, the text insists the Creator never grants their leader a proper personal name.
Oh, interesting.
He is stripped of individual identity and left as a nameless, generic evil. He is just the opposer.
Just a title.
Right. But here is where the intentional semantic inversion comes into play. The author claims that the global administrators of our world, the ones running that hacked operating system you mentioned, they took this generic title, capitalized it, and transformed it into a personal proper name. Satan.
Let me try to put this into an analogy to see if I'm tracking.
Go for it.
Let's say you work for a massive corporation. You have a benevolent, visionary CEO who actually cares about the employees.
Right.
But you also have this incredibly aggressive, lower-level corporate auditor whose only job is to find flaws, obstruct projects, and report failures.
Right.
What you're saying is the system manipulated the language so that everyone started calling the auditor by a celebrity moniker, putting his name up in lights, and basically treating him like the main character of the company.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. By giving the adversary a personal name, the text argues that humanity falsely mythologizes it.
Oh, I see. We treat this entity as a legendary, unique individual.
Exactly. We give it a face, a backstory, a sense of gravitas in our minds. We grant it an unearned intimacy and a sense of self-worth that structurally it fundamentally does not possess.
And the text argues this inversion has a second, equally critical half, right?
Yes, it does.
Because while the auditor is getting celebrity treatment, what happens to the CEO?
If they get sidelined.
Right. The author argues that the creator's actual personal name was systematically erased from common use and replaced with a distant generic title.
Yeah, the text notes that the divine name was replaced in translations with just the Lord.
Which feels very administrative.
Very. And this isn't just a stylistic choice, according to the text. Wize argues it was engineered to strip away the profound intimacy between the creator and humanity.
It makes the divine seem aloof, right? Unattainable.
Exactly. The author even drops a hint about the creator's true name, revealing it conceptually as truth, or in Greek, aletheia.
So the psychological operation is a complete swap.
A total inversion.
The nameless opposer gets a legendary name, and the intimate creator gets a sterile, generic title.
Right, and that sets the stage for humanity to misunderstand the entire battlefield.
Yeah, because if we think we are fighting a powerful, individual Dark Lord, we're already losing because we don't even understand the nature of the enemy.
Which brings us to a massive pivot in the text.
Right, because if this entity doesn't have an individual identity, well, what exactly is it?
And this is where the framework moves from ancient linguistics into something that feels incredibly sci-fi.
Oh, totally.
Yet the author grounds it entirely in ancient scripture. The text introduces the concept of the collective hive mind.
The hive mind. That just fundamentally changes the nature of the threat. We aren't talking about a guy with a pitchfork sitting on a throne of fire.
Not at all. Jim Wize draws heavily on a specific encounter in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verse 9.
Okay, what happens there?
When a possessed man is asked for his name, the demonic entity replies, "My name is Legion, for we are many."
Legion, wow.
Yeah. And the manifesto builds its entire architectural framework around this single concept. The adversary is not an individual. It is an unrepentant demonic host operating as a singular, eternally hardened collective mind.
A dark, absolute, forced synchronization.
Forced synchronization is the operative mechanism here. The author points out a glaring weakness in human nature. We are characterized by division, internal conflict, and self-destruction.
Right. I mean, we can barely agree on municipal zoning laws, let alone coordinate a global, multi-generational conspiracy.
Exactly. But the kingdom of darkness, because it shares a singular, immutable purpose of total opposition to the king, it operates with the precision of a synchronized military legion.
So there's zero dissent.
Zero. There are no rogue demons going off script.
And this entity, this legion, possesses what the text calls an ancient intellect.
Right.
And if you pause and really think about the implications of that phrase, it is deeply chilling.
The author is demanding that we consider the sheer scale of the intelligence humanity is supposedly fighting against.
Because a human lifespan is, at best, around 80 to 100 years during what the text calls this current little season.
Yeah, we have a very narrow window of observation. We learn, we make mistakes, we die, and the next generation basically has to start all over again.
But this entity doesn't die.
No, the text posits this concept of demonic immortality.
Right.
This hive mind has been observing human biological lineages since the very beginning. It has studied the psychological patterns, the rise and fall of every empire that has ever existed under the dome.
It's like it is compiled what the text calls a transgenerational database of human vulnerabilities.
It's exactly like an advanced machine learning AI that has been playing the exact same game of chess against human psychology for 6,000 years.
That's terrifying.
Right. Fighting this ancient mind with human logic, secular philosophy, or university education is described by Wize as a statistical absurdity.
Because it just knows too much.
Yes, this entity knows our behavioral pressure points, our genetic predispositions, and our societal triggers vastly better than we ever could.
And it deploys this accumulated data through a highly advanced system, right? The author calls it dual-realm telecommunication.
Dual-realm telecommunication.
Yes. I want to spend some time here because this is the point in the text where the global conspiracy suddenly becomes deeply uncomfortably personal for the reader.
It really does.
The text claims this hive mind doesn't use audible voices. Like, it's not a booming, scary voice coming from the closet.
No, nothing like that.
It projects silent, invisible frequencies suggestions directly into the human mind.
And to understand how this works, we need to introduce a crucial theological concept from the manifesto: the image of Adam.
The image of Adam. Okay.
The author argues that humanity's original design, Adam and Eve, included the Holy Spirit intimately living inside them, providing a direct, secure connection to the Creator.
Like a secure firewall.
Exactly. But upon the fall, that connection was severed. Consequently, natural humanity is now born in the image of Adam.
So what does being born in the image of Adam actually mean, practically speaking?
It means we are born as biological vessels with a scrambled spiritual void. We do not have the indwelling Holy Spirit by default.
So we are basically unprotected hardware.
Yes. And because we have this internal spiritual vacuum, the hive mind can cast silent, guiding frequencies, evil suggestions, irrational fears, sudden bursts of arrogant pride directly into our consciousness.
Let me throw out another analogy for this, because it's a really difficult concept to grasp.
Sure.
It's like being born with a hacked Bluetooth receiver implanted in your brain, but nobody ever told you it was there.
Oh, that's good.
And there is an external DJ, this ancient hive mind, playing a highly curated playlist of your deepest insecurities, your arrogance, your lusts, and your worst impulses.
Right.
But the hack is so incredibly seamless, and the integration is so flawless that you think you are the one requesting the songs.
You think it's your own voice.
Exactly. You think that voice telling you you're worthless or the voice telling you you're better than everyone else is just your own internal monologue.
That is a phenomenal illustration of the text's premise. The entire success of the hive mind relies on the human vessel believing that its external thoughts are actually internal origins.
Because if you knew, you'd fight it.
Exactly. If you realized the signal was external, if you realized it was an attack, you might seek a way to block it. You might seek the true king.
So the deception must remain entirely invisible.
Absolutely invisible.
But, okay, I'm struggling with the logistics of this on a macro scale.
How so?
If this dual-realm hacking is happening constantly, globally, if human vessels are constantly being bombarded or even fully occupied by these spiritual entities, why isn't it obvious?
Right.
I mean, shouldn't we see people exhibiting signs of this spiritual warfare every single day? Why aren't the streets full of people recognizing this possession?
This brings us to perhaps the most controversial and paradigm-shattering section of Jim Wise's entire manifesto.
Okay, buckle up.
The author claims that we do see it every single day. The chaos is everywhere.
But we just don't recognize it.
Right, because the secular medical and psychiatric establishments have been entirely engineered to act as a massive institutional cover-up for this spiritual reality.
I mean, this requires a massive leap for the listener. The text basically completely invalidates the entire foundation of modern psychiatry and pharmacology.
It does. Wize introduces what he calls the universal law of inversion.
The universal law of inversion. Let's break that down.
The global administrative system takes literal spiritual realities and inverts them into materialist biological or chemical diseases. Okay. Remember, the text argues that humans are born as unprotected vessels. Because of that void, it is entirely possible for multiple spiritual entities to occupy a single human body at the same time.
Right.
And this inevitably creates severe, violent psychological and physical disruptions in the host.
The human body basically becomes a literal site of intense spiritual conflict.
Yes. So, according to the text, how does the global administration hide this glaring evidence of the spiritual realm?
By assigning sterile, materialist clinical labels to it?
Exactly. When an unprotected vessel is occupied by multiple competing demonic spirits fighting for control of the hardware, the psychiatric establishment swoops in and labels it multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder.
Wow.
And when a human vessel is sensitive enough to actually hear the literal collective whispers of the demonic hive mind, they are diagnosed with schizophrenia.
So the overarching strategy of the system is to shift the human focus entirely away from the concept of spiritual deliverance, which would actually solve the root problem, according to the text,
Right.
and move it squarely into the realm of chemical management.
Management being the operative word. The system does not want to cure the vessel. It wants to manage the symptoms to maintain the illusion of a purely material world.
And this is where pharmakia comes in.
Yes, the text points heavily to pharmakia, the ancient Greek word associated with sorcery and drugs, which gives us our modern word pharmaceuticals.
Right.
By redefining literal spiritual possession as a mere chemical imbalance in the brain, the system funnels the entire population toward toxic, calcifying drugs.
It's like, okay, think about having a severe malicious software virus destroying your computer's hard drives.
Sure.
But instead of running an antivirus program to wipe the malware, the IT guy comes over, puts a piece of opaque black tape over the flashing red warning light on your monitor, and then pours a cup of industrial bleach over the physical motherboard to slow it down.
That's horrifying.
Right. You are brutally treating the physical hardware, but the malware is completely untouched. In fact, the malware is thrilled because you've permanently disabled the system's alarms.
And according to the manifesto, that is exactly the goal of pharmakia. The pharmaceuticals lock the human vessel in what Wize calls a materialist loop.
A materialist loop.
The individual becomes chemically sedated, spiritually calcified, and entirely dependent on the secular medical system.
So they never look up.
Never. They never seek what the text calls the liberating authority of the true king, because they've been convinced their soul isn't under attack, their brain chemistry is just faulty.
It's a perfectly designed, closed-loop psychological prison.
It is a profoundly bleak subversion of how we view health, medicine, and the human mind.
But the text doesn't stop at the boundaries of the human body.
No, it zooms way out.
Right, because if you accept the author's premise that the internal world is a managed prison, you have to ask about the external world. And Jim Wize claims this universal law of inversion has been mapped onto the physical Earth itself.
Which brings us to the cosmology and the physical geometry of this matrix. As you pointed out, if you are going to control a population, if you are going to put them in a biological and linguistic quarantine, you have to absolutely control their perception of the physical prison they live in.
And this is where we get into the geocentric cosmology. We're talking about the literal shape of the Earth.
Right.
If you're listening to this while driving to work or looking up at the night sky, the author is essentially asking you to discard every single scientific principle you've been taught since kindergarten.
Toss it right out the window.
Let's look at exactly how they justify tearing down modern astronomy.
The text argues that the true physical layout of our reality is a stationary, flat Earth. It does not move.
Okay, flat and stationary.
And it is entirely enclosed under a massive, solid, crystalline firmament dome. Heaven sits physically, tangibly above this dome, and the realm of the dead, Sheol, lies below it.
It's like a quarantined terrarium sitting on a cosmic shelf.
That's a great visual.
And the absolute magnetic center of this flat plane, what we call the North Pole, is identified in the text as Mount Zion, the physical, earthly throne of God.
Yes, the text even references ancient pre-reset cartography, maps that supposedly call this central polar region the Terre de Eso, the literal land of Jesus.
So if that is the true geography, why the modern globe? Why the infinite vacuum of space? Why does every classroom have a spinning globe in it?
Well, the author argues that heliocentrism, the model of a spinning ball orbiting a massive sun in a never-ending, expanding universe, is a deliberate, vital deception designed to erase the vertical authority of the creator.
How exactly does a globe erase divine authority?
Think about the psychology of it. If you convince mankind that they are clinging to a meaningless speck of dust spinning out of control in an empty, godless void, you spiritually erase the physical, vertical throne that is situated right above their heads.
Oh, I see.
You make the geometry of Mount Zion, a central physical access point to the divine, seem geographically and scientifically impossible.
So heliocentrism basically replaces a tailored, created habitat with a narrative of random cosmic insignificance.
Exactly. It makes us feel tiny and alone.
Okay, I have to push back here on behalf of anyone who has ever looked through a lens.
Fair enough.
I can go online right now, buy a telescope, set it up in my backyard and look at Jupiter. I can literally see the rings of Saturn.
Yes, you can.
So if space is fake and we live under a solid dome, how does the text explain these massive floating spheres right above us?
The text offers a fascinating, internally consistent astronomical paradox to address exactly that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Under this flat Earth geocentric framework, the modern concept of planets as giant, physical, terra firma worlds made of gas or rock is a complete fabrication.
So they aren't real worlds.
Right, they're basically a Hollywood set with a painted backdrop. Wize refers to them using the original Greek term asteres planetae, which translates to wandering stars.
Wandering stars.
They are not worlds, they are simply luminaries moving within the structure of the firmament dome. But the author gives two possible theological models for what these wandering stars actually are.
Right. The text gives us an either scenario, both of which are frankly wild. Option A is the empty shell model.
Let's break that down.
We know the book of Revelation, chapter 12, talks about a third of the stars being cast down to earth by the dragon.
Yes.
If that passage is completely literal, then the planets we see with our telescopes, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, are actually dead, vacant stations.
Empty shells.
Yeah, they're the empty, glowing hermit crab shells left behind by the fallen angels who have been physically evicted and are now permanently quarantined down here on Earth with us.
It's an eerie thought. And then there is option B, the active good angels model.
Okay, what's that one?
If the biblical fall of the stars was entirely metaphorical for a spiritual eviction, then the active, beautifully sparkling stars we see moving in intricate patterns under the dome are actually the loyal, righteous angels.
So the stars are angels.
Yes. They are constantly illuminating the firmament, moving in perfect obedience and faithful service to the Creator.
But either way, whether they are empty shells or loyal angels, the text points out this massive linguistic inversion again.
Right.
Because we have renamed these celestial bodies after pagan demonic deities. Venus, Mars, Jupiter.
It's a massive cognitive trick.
We're either looking at the loyal servants of God and calling them by the names of demons, or we are looking at the abandoned homes of demons and worshiping them as planets.
Exactly. It's a total subversion of celestial reality. But the manipulation of physical space in this manifesto isn't just about the stars above us. It's heavily focused on the map of the Earth itself, and specifically who occupies it.
And this leads us to what Jim Wize calls the ethnic proxy deception.
Yes, this part is incredibly complex, highly controversial, and requires us to tread very carefully.
Definitely. The text claims the global controllers use translation deceptions to literally create a fake demographic of people.
Yes. The author argues that during historical periods he calls administrative resets, a newly coined word was synthetically injected into translations of Scripture.
And this injection created a physical, ethnic category of people.
What the text refers to as an ethnic proxy people.
And what is the strategic purpose of inventing an entire demographic?
According to the text, it's all about diversion. By creating a physical, secular demographic and placing a false nation-state on a fabricated Middle Eastern landmass, the global controllers create a massive geopolitical decoy.
A decoy.
It diverts humanity's attention away from two crucial truths: the true geographical center of Mount Zion at the North Pole and the true spiritual heirs.
Which the text firmly identifies based on readings of Romans chapter 9 and Galatians chapter 3 as the born-again believers, regardless of their ethnic background.
Right, they're the new sons of God.
The author claims this physical proxy group in the Middle East is used by the hive mind to manage horizontal earthly conflicts.
It drives endless cycles of war, news coverage, and geopolitics, basically keeping the global population emotionally spent, divided, and entirely distracted from the real vertical spiritual war happening right above them.
I mean, we have to pause and just express a sense of awe at the sheer terrifying logistical scale of this claimed deception.
It's unfathomable.
We're talking about rewriting thousands of years of cartography, faking the entirety of modern astronomy, inventing the disciplines of psychiatry and pharmacology from scratch just to hide demonic possession, and synthetically altering global theology to create decoy nations.
It's a lot to manage.
And let's be real. How does one collective hive mind possibly coordinate a physical earthly lie this massive across the entire globe? Demonic whispers can only do so much. They would need actual physical human agents to run the institutions, right?
Absolutely. A spiritual hive mind cannot sign a banking charter or host a televised press conference.
Right. They need boots on the ground.
The text asserts that this level of earthly coordination requires high-level human biological gatekeepers, physical hosts who actively, knowingly manage the administrative zones of these, what he calls, seceded lands.
And this brings us to the structure of this elite network, how they communicate, and specifically Jim Wize's deep dive into the L-EGI-ON flesh suit protocol.
This is a major, major pillar of the text. This is where the text gets into the biology of the elite class.
It's not just that they are rich people in a secret club, right?
Right.
Their actual physical biology is allegedly compromised.
Let's start with the mathematical signature they use before we get to the biology. The demonic host operates under a highly structured, unyielding military hierarchy.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier that a third of the stars fell from heaven. That represents approximately 33.3% of the celestial order.
The code of 33.
Yes. The text argues that the global elites, secret societies, and these biological gatekeepers use the number 33 as their ultimate administrative signature.
Like in Freemasonry.
Exactly. The 33rd degree of Freemasonry, for instance, isn't just an honorary title for old men who do charity work. The author claims it is a telegraphed signal of absolute submission to the fallen third, led by the Satan-in-chief.
So they basically mark their physical territory with
The
it.
geographical layouts, treaties, corporate logos.
But the text goes much deeper into their physical biology and how they present themselves in mass media.
It does. Wize focuses heavily on the L-EGI-ON protocol, and there's a strong thematic focus here on a concept called EGI.
EGI, elite gender inversion.
Yes, and the idea of a global biological warfare program.
This is a huge cornerstone of Wise's theory on how the Matrix physically operates. He ties the spiritual hive mind to the physical bodies of the elite class through this EGI biological warfare program.
Right. The assertion is that these elites are operating under inverted biological roles. It's a gender simulation deception.
So essentially, the men we see in the elite limelight are biologically female, and the women are biologically male, hidden through extensive surgeries and lifelong hormonal protocols.
That is exactly what the text claims.
But why? Like, let's say for the sake of argument, this grand conspiracy exists. Why go through the immense, risky trouble of inverting the genders of your politicians and movie stars? What does that possibly accomplish for a demonic hive mind?
In the logic of the manifesto, it accomplishes several profound things. First, it represents demonic immortality.
How so?
By severing the natural reproductive capabilities of their hosts through this inversion process, the host becomes a closed biological loop. They can't reproduce naturally. They are entirely dependent on the system to procure heirs.
Okay, that makes sense in this twisted logic.
Second, it is the ultimate mockery of the divine creation. If the creator made them male and female, the ultimate insult by the adversary is to blur, invert, and completely destroy that binary.
It's an act of spiritual vandalism on the human form.
Precisely. And third, these inverted individuals act as highly managed flesh suits for the legionic hive mind.
The L-EGI-ON flesh suits.
Right. Because they are living a fundamental biological lie every single day of their lives, their psyche is fractured. They are entirely compromised, making them perfect, obedient vessels for the dual-realm telecommunication we discussed earlier.
They are a literal walking embodiment of the Matrix's deception.
Yes, and because these biological gatekeepers hold a total monopoly on the elite limelight, what Wize very pointedly refers to as the television programming.
Television. Clever.
They are constantly in front of the cameras. The television is the medium through which the hive mind projects its reality, but because they are a coordinated network, they have to communicate their allegiance to each other constantly.
But they do it right in front of us, through the television.
Exactly. The text breaks down a highly specific visual telegraph system.
I want to go through these hand gestures because the author claims we see them every day on red carpets, in political photography, on magazine covers.
We do. The first one, detailed by Wize, is the code of silence sign. One finger placed vertically over the closed lips.
Right, usually we see a pop star or an actor do this on an album cover, and we think, oh, they're being edgy, they've got a secret, it's just a cute, mysterious pose.
The manifesto strips away that innocence entirely. It claims this is a solemn, strict vow. It is a visual signal to the hive mind and to the other gatekeepers, confirming their unbroken commitment not to spill beans.
Spilling the beans on what exactly?
They are publicly signaling that they will not reveal their shared legionic identity, their participation in the EGI protocol, or the fact that they are wearing inverted flesh suits. It is a sworn vow to maintain the biological and psychological quarantine of the sleeping masses.
Wow. Okay, then there's the peace sign. 2 fingers up in a V shape. We associate it with hippies, the 1960s anti-war movements.
Well, Wize argues the unrepentant host didn't just hijack this sign, they fundamentally created it. In this framework, it is absolutely not a symbol of peace.
What does it mean then?
It is a hand gesture telegraphing their commitment to the duality of being and their inverted physical roles. It's a sinister, inside joke nod to the two-faced nature of their existence in the physical realm. The masculine and the feminine forcibly merged into a deceptive vessel.
That's incredibly dark. What about the one-eye sign? You see this absolutely everywhere in television programming.
Everywhere.
Movie posters, fashion spreads, someone covering one eye with their hand or framing a single eye with the OK hand sign.
The OK hand sign, as the text meticulously notes, subtly forms a 666 with the 3 raised fingers.
Oh, I see it.
And framing the single eye represents the all-seeing eye, the eye of deception that sits atop the pyramid of this worldly system.
So it's a sign of allegiance.
It is an active, public telegraph of total submission. The elite host is signaling that their perception, their career, and their biology are entirely governed by the head of the global hierarchy. They are stating visually, I belong to the hive.
And the last one, which I found the most psychologically disturbing in its implications, is the all-mocking tongue. Simply sticking out the tongue for the camera. The text specifically calls out that incredibly famous 1951 photo of Albert Einstein and comedic actors like Jim Carrey.
Right, and we are conditioned by culture to view this as a sign of intellectual eccentricity or harmless rebelliousness, a genius having a goofy moment.
But the author states this is a massive coordinated deception. It is an active visual code of open mockery.
Unapologetically, the hive mind, operating through these elite flesh suits, is openly mocking the sleeping masses.
They are literally laughing at us.
Yes, they are telegraphing their utter contempt for the population, laughing at the sheer fact that the public is too blind, too sedated by pharmakia, and too caught up in the horizontal geopolitical distractions to perceive the biological and physical control grid surrounding them.
I mean, if you buy into the author's reality, it turns every pop culture event into a suffocating psychological prison.
It changes everything you watch.
The wardens of the prison are flaunting the keys right in front of the inmates, and the inmates think it's just the latest fashion statement on TikTok. You'd never be able to look at a magazine cover or a red carpet event the same way again without hunting for these supposed visual telegraphs.
And that is the exact intended effect of Jim Wise's document. It demands a total reevaluation of visual culture.
But this raises a major logical question for our analysis.
Let's hear it.
Why put it in plain sight? If this ancient intellect is so incredibly cunning, if it has spent thousands of years building a transgenerational database of human flaws to stay hidden, why risk exposure?
It does seem counterintuitive.
Right. Why do the OK sign on national television where anyone could analyze it? Why not just operate in total absolute secrecy in a windowless boardroom?
Wize suggests two main reasons for this. First, the hive mind perceives absolute triumph. It enjoys the mockery.
So it's just pure arrogance.
The arrogance of the unrepentant host is so complete, so absolute, that flaunting the deception is part of the psychological reward. They feed on the irony.
And the second reason?
Second, it is a ritualistic requirement. In the esoteric rules of this realm, the controllers must reveal their allegiance to their master, even if it is coded. However, this supreme arrogance masks a massive, fatal structural weakness in their organization.
Which brings us to the final, and perhaps most crucial, theological part of this worldview.
Right.
They seem incredibly powerful, ruling the television media, modern medicine, global geography, and biology. They seem invincible. But the text reveals they are not independent actors at all.
This is the ultimate paradox of the adversary in Wise's framework. Despite its ancient intellect, its global grip on the seceded lands, and its legions of elite flesh suits, the adversary is a strictly, pathetically confined entity.
Confined by what?
It operates under what the author calls a divine leash.
A divine leash. The text highlights the intensely, almost frustratingly legalistic nature of the spiritual realm.
It really does.
The rebel host cannot simply do whatever it wants. It has to act like a subservient, groveling prosecutor in a cosmic courtroom. It requires explicit judicial permission for every single action it takes against humanity.
The manifesto provides extensive scriptural backing to prove this legal paralysis. Look at the Book of Job in the Old Testament.
A classic example.
The adversary, despite all his supposed power, has to literally present himself before the Creator like an employee reporting to management. He wants to test Job, to destroy his life, but the Creator sets rigid, unbreakable boundary lines.
First, the Creator says, "Do not put forth your hand on him."
Then later, "He is in your power, only spare his life." The adversary cannot touch a single hair on Job's head without explicit verbal authorization.
The text also brings up the prophet Zechariah, chapter 3. The adversary is standing there acting as a prosecutor against Joshua the high priest, ready to list all his sins.
And what happens?
The prosecutor is instantly shut down with a single rebuke from the Lord. His entire case has no legal standing the moment the judge issues a pardon. He just has to stand there in silence.
And in the New Testament, we see the exact same legal paralysis applied to the hive mind. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, Jesus tells Peter that Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat.
Demanded permission.
The original Greek word used there implies a formal legal request. It wasn't a threat. It was a motion filed in a courtroom.
My favorite example from the text is when Jesus evicts the legion of demons from the man in the tombs. These ancient, terrifying entities have to beg for permission just to enter a herd of pigs.
They are completely humiliated.
They are evicted from their human hosts with a single word. They have absolutely zero autonomous power.
Let's use an analogy to connect this to the bigger picture, because it exposes a profound, almost comical irony at the heart of the conspiracy. Imagine a defense attorney who has been completely disbarred. His license is revoked, he has no actual power. But the judge, for a very specific reason, still allows him to file paperwork and make noise in the lobby, hoping the clients don't realize he's powerless.
That's a great image.
The adversary has engineered this unimaginably intricate matrix, a flat Earth enclosure, a global medical cover-up, a biological L-EGI-ON protocol, a massive media monopoly of visual telegraphs. Yet at the end of the day, the Satan-in-chief is essentially a cosmic middle manager who constantly has to ask the CEO for permission to do his job.
A middle manager on a very strict, rapidly expiring contract. The text repeatedly mentions we are currently living in a little season.
Yes, a temporary, heavily restricted lease of deception.
And this little season concept explains the current frantic state of our world, according to Wize.
The hive mind is acutely aware that its short timeline is coming to a violent end. It doesn't control its own destiny. It is merely playing out a script allowed by the divine leash.
So it's disparate.
Its absolute desperation drives this massive, coordinated push to keep humanity spiritually blind, emotionally spent through geopolitics, and chemically sedated by pharmakia because it knows its window of influence is slamming shut.
So how does this all end? If you look at a lot of alternative eschatology or end times theology, you usually have these massive, drawn-out physical wars.
Right, like Armageddon.
7 years of tribulation, armies gathering in the Middle East, years of burning weapons or burying bodies. Does Jim Wise's text follow that standard cinematic pattern?
No, it explicitly and forcefully rejects that narrative. The text states that the final resolution is not a long, drawn-out premillennial war fought with tanks and jets.
No physical battle.
There is no epic physical battle on the horizontal plane. The resolution is instantaneous.
An immediate eviction into the lake of fire.
Exactly. The text states that once the matrix of deception is fully exposed, once the linguistic tricks, the cartographical flat Earth cover-up, and the biological L-EGI-ON flesh suits are laid bare, the prison grid becomes structurally unsustainable.
So what happens then?
The final doom of the rebel host and its human gatekeepers is resolved instantly and cleanly by fire out of heaven. There's no negotiation, no treaty, and no physical delay. The divine leash is simply yanked hard, the simulation collapses, and the game is over.
Wow. Okay, let's take a collective breath and zoom out. We have covered an immense, staggering amount of ground today.
We truly have. Let's briefly trace the narrative arc of the framework Jim Wize has constructed here.
Right. We started with the foundational code of language. A generic functional title, the adversary, was manipulated by translators into a legendary personal name, while the creator's true name, truth, was purposefully obscured to sever intimacy.
We then move to the nature of the enemy. The hive mind, legion, and ancient intellect exploiting the spiritual void in human vessels, what the text calls the image of Adam, through silent dual-realm telecommunication.
From there, we explored the massive institutional cover-up. The claim that modern medicine and psychiatry exist primarily as a masking mechanism, using the universal law of inversion to turn literal spiritual possession into chemical imbalances, which are then sedated and calcified by pharmakia.
We looked at the physical boundaries of the prison, a flat geocentric Earth, enclosed by a firmament, where the wandering stars are either dead, empty shells of fallen angels or the glowing stations of loyal ones.
And the geographic deception of a newly minted ethnic proxy people designed to distract humanity from the true spiritual heirs and the true physical center of Mount Zion at the North Pole.
We then decoded the visual telegraphs of the biological gatekeepers. The elite class, operating under the EGI and L-EGI-ON flesh suit protocols, monopolizing the television programming.
We saw how they used the one eye, the peace sign, and the mocking tongue to signal their unbroken vows of silence and to openly mock the sleeping masses they control.
And finally, we saw that despite all this intricate, terrifying power, the entire demonic system is straining helplessly against an inescapable divine leash, waiting for an instantaneous, fiery resolution.
It really is a masterclass in building a total, unified theory of reality, where every single data point from the shape of the Earth to a celebrity sticking out their tongue on a red carpet is perfectly connected.
It is a remarkable, if deeply unsettling, synthesis of theology, conspiracy, biology, and linguistic analysis. Regardless of your stance on the validity of the material, the architecture of Jim Wize's argument is undeniably intricate and internally robust.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
I think that's a good idea.
Let's strip away the more fantastical elements for a second.
Right.
Let's put aside the flat Earth cosmology, the biological flesh suits, and the red carpet hand signs.
Okay, stripping it back.
Think back to the core premise of the image of Adam. The idea that humanity's baseline state makes us incredibly susceptible to mistaking external manipulation for our own internal monologue.
Right.
In our modern, hyper-connected, media-saturated world, we are constantly bombarded by algorithms, advertisements, and cultural frequencies designed to shape our desires, our fears, and our political outrage.
Constantly.
So how often are you adopting beliefs, anxieties, or desires that aren't actually yours? How often is your anger just a downloaded script from a screen?
That's a profound question.
Even if you discard the theology and cosmology of this text entirely, the idea that our internal voice might just be an echo of external static is a profound, chilling reason to question everything we assume to be true about ourselves. Are you the one typing the commands on your mental operating system, or are you just running a program someone else wrote?
A vital, necessary question for anyone trying to navigate the age of information overload.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of deception. Until next time, keep questioning the code.